to answer your career questions, whatever they might be related to marketing plan. Do you have a marketing plan related to interviewing, networking, market planning? It's career happy hour every Friday, 3:00 p.m. Pacific time. Who am I? I'm Andrew Beach. I'm a teacher of self-education. I help professionals like you communicate your value to find great opportunities faster, whether you're working or not. That's through a branded networking process that generates interviews inside of 90 days and might secure you a new position at double your salary. It's quite incredible, actually. Welcome. If you can hear me, let me know in the chat. I'd appreciate that. We're now active on Facebook, Periscope, YouTube, and of course, LinkedIn, which is where my base of operations is. Where are you joining from? I'm in Portland, Oregon today, working out of the home office. Hopefully you're doing well and safe. Let me know that you can hear me in the chat. Let me get over to LinkedIn and make sure I'm broadcasting there. Sometimes these things get started and I don't know whether or not you can hear me. Let me make sure I mute that site so you don't get a backlash here. Let's turn that off, slow down. Good to see everybody. Welcome. I will put a link in the chat, actually. If you want to come on live and get some free coaching, I'm here to support you. There's a link in the description, but I will also put that link in the chat box for you to join live at any time you like. Come in, you'll be put in a waiting room and you'll be able to see me there. So, and still, I think you can take in the presentation. So that's great. Join live if you want to get free coaching. Free coaching live by me, you and I talking live. So I will put that in the chat here. Looks like that's going through to Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope, but it's not coming over to LinkedIn. So I'll put it in the chat on LinkedIn there. Good. Welcome, everybody. Good to have you back. It's Friday. It's happy hour somewhere, right? Happy hour here in Portland. 3:00 is normally when the happy hour starts, 3 to 6. But you might be on the West Coast. You may just be capping off your happy hour, whatever that is. Hopefully you're enjoying your day, had a good week. It's October. Can you believe it? It's October. I understand it's the 1 month this year where you have 2 full moons, one on the 1st and one on the 31st. I don't know if I should be scared or superstitious, but I find that interesting. If you would please share this broadcast to your network, I would really appreciate that. The little share button down below will allow you to do that. Please take advantage of getting the word out about this session. That's the only thing I ask. I come here, I dedicate time for free to provide you support. This is a community, and the way that we expand and promote and deliver results for each other, I think is a characteristic that we should all be thinking about. Good. I'm glad that you can hear me. That's much appreciated. Absolutely. And I do have some thoughts today, but good, Rochelle. Good to see you. Looks like Craig is here. Craig is back. Excellent. Giridar. I'm good with the names, but I'm not perfect. I'll give my best. That's all I can say. But it's October. It's October. Share this. It's really simple. It doesn't matter what platform you're on, but if you could just share this broadcast with your network, just take a minute, post it to your feed, whatever that looks like. I would really appreciate that. The more people we can get involved in this, the better. This is a free service. I'm here for you, to support you. This is a community. In fact, if you're just joining us for the first time, we really encourage people to put in the chat, wherever you are, your LinkedIn profile address. This exists for career, and the #1 career site is, of course, LinkedIn. Please share the broadcast and share a link to your profile in the chat so that we can cross-pollinate. I really encourage people to connect in the chat. A lot of people have done that and gotten good leads and connection to other people inside their domains of interest. So please, I'm trying to make this a community so we can actually interact. It's not just you and come and consume. It's you come, consume, and see other people in the chat and say, hey, I should talk to that person. I should provide that person support. I should ask for support from that person. It's open networking here today, okay? October. For a lot of companies, October is the beginning of the fourth quarter, and we need to wrap our head around what that means, especially with the pandemic going on. Is this fourth quarter like any other fourth quarter they faced? If the holidays are coming, does their business depend on holiday revenues? Think about some of the companies you're investigating, okay? What are they facing in finance? What is that company facing in sales, accounting, product management? Whatever your domain is, what is the company you're pursuing? Maybe it's Amazon. Do you think Amazon is going to run with their hair on fire between now and the end of the year? The answer is yes, they are. They're expecting, I think, something on the order of a 20% increase in sales just based on the pandemic, okay? People evidently aren't going to be going to shopping malls this holiday season. What does that mean? I don't know what that means, but think about it from the perspective of your target company. What does it mean to them? What are they wrestling with? Now, outside of the pandemic, and we've established this many weeks in a row, we've talked about people working from home. We've talked about people feeling isolated, people feeling alone sometimes, lonely, people thirsting for human connection, people thirsting for connection in person even, which might sound weird and a little strange and somewhat dangerous, but I think that still can be managed effectively. If you do the distancing and the masks and all that, and you gauge the temperature and whether or not this person you might be meeting is palatable to meeting in person, maybe you do it in an outdoor setting. There's a lot of places, even in Portland, I know it's a rainy place, but right now the weather's not so bad, but they're setting up tents outdoors so that you can meet together in a distance fashion with your PPE and whatever you feel protocols necessary to meet that person live and get that connection. Now, why do I bring that up? Well, once we understand what people are facing, we can relate to them. And that's what this process of networking is. It's relating to people in a way that's mutually beneficial. And often we miss or become tone deaf to what's happening in the marketplace because we have this need for employment, right? So we make it about us, our need for employment, and that falls on deaf ears. Let's make it about the other person, their needs, what are they facing, and how can I help them solve that problem? Maybe you're really good at that. Maybe you're in accounting and you're really good at the month, year, and quarterly close happening all at once in December. Maybe that's you. Maybe you like going with your hair on fire to run payroll in that month. Whatever that is, if you have unique abilities to solve that problem where companies may have limited or distributed resources, think about that as a solution to a problem. So come into the fourth quarter with what is your solution to the problem in the marketplace? Not how can I find a job at a company I'd like to work for, okay? That's the outcome or maybe the tangential result of that activity of identifying a problem at a company that you can solve based on the current environment. Run that through your friends. Make that a purpose of your networking, actually. Your networking could be focused on that kind of thing. So first thing to think about is what are these companies going through and what are the people they're wrestling with and what problem do I solve in the marketplace? Think about it from that perspective. Second thing to think about is your own self-care, okay? We're headed into the holidays, right? What days are you taking off, okay? I've seen this before. People start going into the holidays with this mindset that nobody hires in the holidays. And that's ridiculous. I've had candidates get offers on Thanksgiving and they responded day after Thanksgiving with an acceptance or a counteroffer, okay? To think that companies are not hiring is ridiculous. Think of all the reasons why they should hire. Markets are ramping back up. Some geographies are reopening after going to phase 3. You know what? There's things going on in the marketplace. Should we participate? And the answer is yes. But I would establish in terms of self-care, what days are you going to take off? And just mark those off the calendar now. And every other day that you choose to work, put a square, like a red square around that. Maybe you print out a calendar. And this is the day I'm going to work on my job search. These days, I am not going to work on that job search. Okay? Because here's what happens. Most candidates, they go into the holidays. They just take the holidays off. They don't do anything. No networking, no applications, no conversations, no interviews. They just take the rest of the year off. And so it starts typically just after Halloween, right? Halloween, you got the kids, the grandkids, you're out doing the trick-or-treating. You're like, I'm just going to cruise to the end of the year and see what happens next year. Well, how do you think people get offers in January and February? It's because they did work in November and December. What do you think? What do you think about this? I sold real estate for a lot of years. 13 years I sold real estate. What do you think the number one month for corporate relocation might be? And if that month is January, which it is, that's the number one month for corporate relocation. When do you think these people are interviewing, and when are they getting offers? November and December. Okay. This is also when companies probably are thinking about, hey, if they start a new year, that requisition may be pulled and I may lose that budget money. Okay. Is that possible? Sure, it's possible. It's a pandemic. Anything's possible. Okay. Think about it from that perspective. Good to see you all. If you have any questions, by the way, put your questions in the chat. I'd be happy to answer anything around that question that you have. But the topic right now is fourth quarter. If you could please just take a second, if you're just joining, and put your LinkedIn profile in the chat, that would be great. Doesn't matter what platform you are on. That's the first thing. The second thing is just click the share button, share it to your feed. Okay, that's all it takes. That's all I'm asking. As a free resource here every Friday at 3 o'clock, I don't ask for anything. This is free for me. So it's really helpful if you could just click share. That's all I ask. That's all I would desire to have happen as a result of the contributions I make here. So first thing is think like the other people. Okay. Solution is a marketplace. A solution, the problem you solve in the marketplace. Sorry, it's been a long day. And reaching out to people during the holidays. Think about doing that. What problem are they facing in the fourth quarter? Second thing is self-care. Think about the days you're going to take off, and then every other day you decide to work, just put a circle or a red box around it. Okay. Which days are you going to work? Write them all down. Trust me, this works. It works. If you take just 10 minutes and think through which days you're not going to work and which days you are going to work on your search, you will be so much happier. You'll be able to enjoy the holidays. Okay. But please don't check out for the rest of the year. I implore you. There will be offers made and opportunities landed for those people who do show up. Now, I'm not suggesting you're a 24/7 being. In fact, one of the things you may need to do if you are a 24/7, 365 job seeker is take a break. Block off a bunch of times to be off during this holiday season if you've kind of peaked and hit a burnout phase. So this is a time where you need to say, okay, here's the days I'm going to work. Here's the ones I'm not, and I'm going to stick to that. And I'm going to allow Andrew and the folks on Career Happy Hour to hold me accountable. So good. Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Javier. Appreciate that. Kevin, welcome. Good to have you. Kevin Riley Commercial. Good to have you. Excellent. Everybody putting their link to their profiles in here. I appreciate that. That's awesome. So if you want to come on live, you can. There is a link in the description as well as in the chat box. So if you want to come on live and get some of your career questions answered in a dynamic way between you and me on the video, that's great. I understand Terry wasn't able to make it today. Terry Smith, if you guys know, is a consistent member of this Career Happy Hour team, community, whatever you want to call it. And I think he's getting exposure and interviews because he's come on this stream, just so you know. I'm not going to make that direct connection, but by being here and being a resource and engaging with people in the chat, he's now second, third, fourth degree from that connection, and he's getting interviews out of it. So please connect with each other in the chat. Reach out to people. Come on live if you want to. I'm not saying you have to. I mean, I recognize not everybody's in a state of having a home studio in their place. So keep that in mind. Don't forget your self-care during the holidays. And then between the things you want to achieve and what's going on in the marketplace and your self-care, there has to be a balance. What does that look like for you? If we're not balanced individuals, we go off the rails. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to be in a state of homeostasis or equilibrium. It's likely going to be a give and take. It's not going to be a perfect thing. So what does that look like for you? So make sure that you're thinking in your mind, here's the days I'm on, here's the days I'm off, and here's the problem I solve in the marketplace. How do I create a balance for myself so I can be resilient throughout the holidays? What contributions do I want to make to the community? Maybe there's a volunteer opportunity. You go ring a bell for Salvation Army, or perhaps do something with the food bank. I know our local, one of the local school districts has something called Packed with Pride. And what that is they go and they deliver food boxes, I think several times a week to local families that used to get food through the school. They don't have food now. So whether that's right or wrong or good or bad, it's less relevant. What is nice is that you get to make a contribution to another human being. So what does that look like for you? And how do you create some balance and resilience factors into your fourth quarter? Okay. Good. Welcome, Deborah. Good to have you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for putting your links in the chat. I do appreciate that. If you have any questions specifically, I'm happy to answer those. I'll go through here and see if I can find some in just a second. So let's keep in mind that the current mindset of most of the people I'm talking to is they're maybe getting their stride and work from home. Doesn't mean they like it. They might be feeling alone and isolated. They're thirsting for connections, whatever that looks like. They might be going through, and my kids are experiencing this with schooling from home, is they're going through Zoom fatigue. And it might be about time for people to start meeting in person, because I don't want to see, it's almost like, back in the day when I was in a little better shape, I ran 2 years in a row. I ran the Tough Mudder. Why do I bring this up? I'm not trying to tell you that I'm some athletic phenom, but I can assure you the first time I ran it, I was scared. I prepared like crazy. I worked out religiously. I was running long distances. I was really preparing myself mentally, emotionally, and physically for the race that was to come. Now, once you've done a Tough Mudder and you've gone that 13, 14, 15 miles and covered 25 to 30 obstacles, you feel pretty good about that accomplishment, that you could do anything. But what I felt after that thing was over is that what else was there for me to do? I had achieved my goal. And I think we see a lot of this from things like, people who go to the moon, or perhaps an astronaut, right? You go up into space, you land on the moon and you come back to Earth. How could you beat that? What is the next goal in line for you? Think about that for a second. Is there a goal that you want to achieve outside of that? And it's kind of hard sometimes to recover, okay? To recover. So think about it from this perspective. You have an opportunity to set another goal. And the reason I bring up the Tough Mudder is because that was 2013. 2013 ran the Tough Mudder. 2014, I looked at the schedule. I looked where it was at. I signed up for it. And I said, you know what? I did this before. I can do it again. You know what? I don't need to train like I did the last time I did this. And I was wrong. I went in there unprepared, not moderately trained and prepared for it, not but 100%, so here's the other part is I was 100% prepared mentally, but I was not 100% prepared physically. So if we don't have some kind of balance here that we can see where things are coming together, and that we can see people are struggling, we need to be a resource to help bring people together. And that's why this community exists in the first place, is to bring people together. What does that mean? Well, hey, there's people in the chat here that you could reach out to and have a one-on-one outside of this weekly thing, right? Javier could meet with Dulce. Kevin could meet with Io, and then there's Deborah in here. Deborah could meet with Eric. There's cross-pollination that should happen. And I want it to happen. Why? Because you know what, folks? We're going into the holidays. There's always an increase in depression, specifically in January and February, because people are depressed that they went through the holidays alone. They maybe put themselves into debt service just to provide, to provide some gifts for their friends and family. So think about how you can offer something to somebody else. That'll not only help them, it'll help you, especially if you're struggling with some of these same things. So get out and connect. You may consider taking that a step further and actually meeting people in person. I really encourage you to do that. Even with the masks and the distancing, you can find a way. Okay. But don't put yourself in a position that's dangerous. Let's be clear on that one. So if you feel like you're an at-risk individual, use your best judgment. So I'm not going to make people go do things, but you really might consider it, especially if you're comfortable with it. You think you're relatively healthy, you got the mask on, and you're doing the distancing. I think you'll be fine. Okay. There's bubbles of people I've been around this whole time, and we've consistently done that, and it's worked out okay. I mean, we've been around each other, so it's almost like we're now family, and we still distance, and we still ask permission to embrace or to shake hands or that sort of thing, and we always, wash hands or use sanitizer. Use your best judgment, okay? I think we're all adults. We know how to handle these things. So that said, okay. Yes, welcome, Chelsea. Good to see you. Welcome to another Career Happy Hour. Chelsea, put your link to your profile page in the chat so people can have that. I'd really appreciate it. Javier has a question. Thank you, Javier. I do appreciate you. Should I change my career path if the market is really tight in my area of expertise? That depends. How do you know that your area of expertise, that the market for that is tight? Here's the thing. Often we judge the market based on what we see advertised. What if I said to you that was 15% of the market advertised positions? How would you respond? Okay, so think through that for a second. If you knew that the advertised positions were about 15% of the market, would you have a different assessment on whether or not the market is tight? Because it's not an indicator. It's not the indicator. It's one indicator of what's happening in the marketplace. So sometimes we feel like, and we get lured into the ease and comfort of making online applications, because guess what? That's easy. We put in our applications, we feel like we did something, and now we're in a position to feel accomplished, like we're moving forward in our search. But all we did on the reality side of things, hopefully we can all handle this reality side, is you just performed data entry and you did the company a service by lowering their expenses, because they used to have to take whatever you sent in the mail or whatever you faxed or whatever you emailed. They had to do something with that, and they had to pay somebody to manage that system. Okay. Nowadays, it's automated. It shouldn't be called an applicant tracking system. It should be automated data entry system, an ADES. Anyway, we could come up with our own acronyms. But the truth of the matter is that when we put our application resume into a system, that's a minimum standard. That's at what we should do at minimum. It's not what we should do based on best known methods. Best known methods are networking, relationships, conversations, connecting with people at that target company to see if they can put their thumb on the scale for you. So please don't hide behind your application resume. Now, I don't know your specific situation, Javier, but my suspicion is you're assuming something that isn't true or may not be true. You're saying that based on your perception of the marketplace and the fact that you may not be getting the opportunities that you think you should be having for a person based on your experience. And I can assure you, I recognize that many people that come to this session have a lot of experience, and it's shocking that they aren't getting moving forward in a hiring process. And so that's less to do with you and your expertise and more to do with the system and process for hiring people is not optimized. It's not perfect. Okay. Craig, good to see you. Thanks for putting your link in the chat. Appreciate that. Yes, better late than never. I appreciate it. So another thing that happened to me, so I'm kind of in a good mood this week. Helped a candidate recently. It was a confidential thing. I had to sign a non-disclosure and whatnot, but he onboarded at the CXO level at an organization, and it hasn't been announced yet, but it's the type of thing where when you do a good job and somebody gets hired, it's the best feeling in the world. And to think that people aren't hiring right now, I don't think that's true. I think you're just not hearing enough about it. You need to find the opportunities. They're not always going to come find you. And finding, so the opportunity finding process might be serendipitous. Let's just put it that way. It might be a recruiter reaching out to you. It might be somebody you meet in career happy hour. It might be a Starbucks barista. I can't really judge how or when that's going to come. We have to do all these different things to find out the one that's going to actually land for us. So thank you, Javier, for that positive response. I appreciate that. So I was thinking about this candidate that I helped recently, and going through board reviews, presentations, interview loops over multiple days. There was a lot to go in preparing for that, and I was joyous that I had the chance to offer some contribution to that success. I feel grateful. And so it's not uncommon when someone procures coaching from me that, they also send me a gift. So I don't know why that is. Can you guys help me out there? Why is it that, maybe people feel like it's a good value to coach with me? I'm not sure. But when somebody sends you a very nice gift of thanks for something that you did, when really the reward for me was helping them get to where they wanted to be successfully, it feels really good. It feels really good to have just a tiny bit of contribution to somebody's success, that they felt so happy with that they sent you a gift on top. So that to me is something that I want to remember and capture. So what is that for you, by the way? What is that for you? What is something that you were pleased to do, got good results, and you were happy about the outcome? And we need to capture these things. There are moments in time or milestones in our career that are really important to us, and we need to know why. Why was that important to you? Well, I had a coaching client that was really receptive, which means they were coachable. They were intelligent, and they viewed me as perhaps a subject matter expert in my field. And so I appreciated that. So I appreciate that about leaders. I appreciate leaders that view people as resources and human beings rather than expenses to be managed, right? So what that means for me is I need to articulate my values that way. And through the stories I tell and the values I identify in those stories and the plans I have for myself in my career that I actively manage, and I don't wait for someone else to make the decision for me, I feel better. Why? Because I feel I'm in control of my career. I'm not leaving it to the people. Yes, gratitude. Absolutely. Thank you, Kevin. Absolutely. It's gratitude. Be grateful for what you have. And I am grateful. I am more grateful. But think about it from this perspective. If somebody, if you feel grateful that somebody chose to do business with you and they gave you a gift on top of it, how do you feel about that person? Okay. You feel that person is someone you want to be around because they have an attitude of abundance, maybe. I don't know, whatever that is for you. But there is a group of people like that you're likely to stay in touch with over time so that you can build a solid network. Many of you may be going through career transition for your first time. Many of you may be multiple times, and you find it very challenging and full of resistance and pain. I know I've been on both sides of that, right? Where, hey, it was the first time and it was full of resistance and pain. I've been on all sides of that. And what we need to recognize is that there's people involved in every hiring process. There's people involved in every joyous activity that you've been a part of. There's people involved in every crowning achievement or contribution you've made through the companies you worked with. Who were those people? Can you, during the holidays, maybe just send them a little something extra if you can do it? It doesn't mean you have to spend money. Could you send them a handwritten card? Could you record something in your own voice on the LinkedIn message platform? Okay. You can also record videos, by the way. You can send videos through the messaging system on LinkedIn. Could you wish them, say something kind and give them something you appreciate about them, right? I'm not going forward with the platitudes of Thanksgiving during Thanksgiving. I'm making that a regular practice, okay? Regular practice. So if you want to come in and get your questions answered live with me online, I don't mind doing that, okay? Good. Yes, I think that's great. Happy Friday, Io. Thank you. Yeah, so former associates staying in touch and checking in on me, continuing to see how I'm doing. I am honored. Yes, you should be honored, and you should be grateful, and you should demonstrate that, and you should try to reciprocate. So there's this law of reciprocity. I think it's really interesting when you study psychology, how people feel about having contributions made to them. When they feel that you've contributed a lot to the other person, they feel obligated to respond. Now, the other thing is your former associates might actually be experiencing survivor's guilt. They might be saying, hey, why Kevin and not me? So just recognize there is some psychological things there that they may be wrestling with. And just let them know, hey, you know what? I'm okay. I appreciate you reaching out. How are you? What's going on in your world relates to the pandemic, right? Make sure that they're okay, because you're heading into the holidays where people are feeling a little sensitive. There's an election coming. People are worried. There's a lot of unrest in the world. There's a lot going on, okay? So get in and take care of that. Good. Thank you, Teresa, for sharing that. Okay, so here's Zai has a question. Virtual one of these days go beyond my presentation PowerPoint for 3 minutes branding statement. This is an admin position. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. You don't set the rules for the interview. The interview rules are set by the company. Whatever the rules are, you need to be prepared and asking in advance any interview team, what is the structure of the interview? Is it individual, panel, face-to-face, whatever that looks like? Who are the people I'm meeting? And what is the structure of the interview? Is that a technical thing, a case study? Will I be asked to make a presentation? What you do is you go through more of these things, you get really good at sniffing out what the requirements are so that you can be absolutely prepared. And never go into those things being surprised. So there's a reason for everything. Okay, there's a reason for everything. So if you're an admin position and they're asking you to make a PowerPoint presentation, maybe that's a key skill, building PowerPoints for the leadership teams. If you know how to do that, then they want to see an example of that you've created. Okay. Yeah. And so some people look at the branding statement or the PowerPoint with a branding statement as a way to introduce themselves. I've seen people use that effectively as an intro, but that can create a disruption in the interview mojo. So just be clear that, hey, if you're going to be introducing something they don't expect at the interview, if it's virtual, I'm going to let them know in advance. Please reach out to that hiring team and let them know that that you're going to be sharing a PowerPoint. In fact, send them a copy of the PowerPoint with your branding statement and all that content in advance, so that they can be prepared, because they may respond and say, hey, this interview is 30 minutes. We typically fill all of that space. We're not going to have time for a PowerPoint. I apologize. And they may turn off screen sharing. So what are you going to do? You're going to hold up the PowerPoints to the camera. So just make sure that you're prepared. Now, the nice thing is, by doing that in advance, you're demonstrating your admin skills, right? You're collaborating, you're requesting permission, you're showing your professional communication skills. Okay. So I would absolutely ask in advance for that. Okay. Vi, I'm just going to call you Vi, if that's okay. Hi, Andrew. Do we change our branding and positioning statement based on the role of the job? We don't change our branding. We change our positioning. Okay. So the question there is valid. Often we don't know, should we change our brand? Should we not? What does that look like? So my advice is don't change the brand, change the positioning, because those are two different things. What you need to remember with branding is it should be consistent. Nike's brand is just do it. They don't change that every season. They don't change it based on the different markets they're going after. Just do it permeates everything that they do, even with diversity and inclusion, even with internal things inside the company. Okay. Second question from Vi. Do we send thank you letter even after phone interview, phone screen? Yes. Send a thank you for everything. So the nice thing about a thank you letter is that it makes you feel good to demonstrate gratitude. So it's a lot, as much for you as it is for them. However, I would suggest that if you go to an interview and it's a phone or interview or a virtual interview, send the email within, say, 24 hours. But don't do it right away. I really encourage people after the interview, block off some time and brain dump everything that you learned during that interview. Absolutely, go for it. Is gifts during holiday season just to network considered as bribe? Yeah, I mean, so certainly I'm not going to be giving gifts to people during the holiday season unless they're people in my inner circle, right? So if it's somebody that I appreciated, we were collaborating a lot, I'm not just doing it for anybody. Okay. So just keep that in mind. It's not something I would advocate doing for everybody. And certainly if there's a job in the middle, I'm not doing that either. It's okay to send, say, a card or something, but not a gift. Okay. Let's see. It is unique and should be appreciated in general. When you do a good job, it is expected. Those who take the time to acknowledge your efforts are, well, unique. Good. Yeah, I appreciate that. And so it's hard for me because, so here's the other part. If I consider how I feel appreciated, it's not through words of affirmation or gifts. It's through quality time. That's why I do these sessions on Friday. Why? Because I appreciate having quality time with people like you, everybody here, this community. That's what I appreciate, quality time with a person. So that's something I can say is my is my love language, if you want to call it that. So good observation, Craig. I appreciate that. Many jobs say remote until COVID is over. As an extreme vulnerable, I predict a company's idea of over is months or perhaps even a year too early for me. Deborah, that's a good thing to point out, is that given the circumstance, there's going to need to be accommodations. And this falls under ADA, right? The, what is that? America with Disabilities Act or something like that. Anyway, the ADA says, hey, you need to make accommodations for people that are in certain categories. And if you're a vulnerable individual, they're going to have to make accommodation. That's just the way it is. And I would advocate for that. So for me, the perception or mindset I would have as a job seeker is somebody in the market right now is that every company is hiring. Okay. Every company is hiring. They may just not be advertising, or you may just be early. Every company is hiring, and every role is a remote role. Every role is a remote role. Most every role is remote. Okay. So if I can assume those two things, I'm going to find all kinds of opportunities, and they may come out of state or out of country, or, they could come from just about anywhere. So take a look at that and consider for a moment that there is an opportunity for you somewhere. There is a place for you. And if you can assume that, then it's easy to reach out to people. It's easy to initiate conversations. It's easy to identify opportunities. But yes, I would consider that as a situation where you want to be careful, cautious, and ask for accommodation. And that's not out of bounds. They should, the hiring team should really understand that there is an accommodation that needs to be made. And many of these companies, even though they say until COVID is over, it may never be a normal operational paradigm for that company. So they may end up going to a remote workforce and then readdress that in 24 months. Okay. Because you can't make investments that way and then peel them back. It's like buying a whole bunch of real estate and then deciding to sell it. It's not a good business decision. You're better off sending each of your remote employees a check for $1,000 every year just to stay home. Okay. No, I don't ignore any position. I look at every position that's posted as data point. Okay. And yes, I encourage people to apply, but that's a minimum standard. I'm not stopping there. If it's a company I really want to work for or a compelling role, I'm going to knock on every door at that company till somebody opens and or that position is filled. Okay. Uh, good. Oh, it's an orientation. Okay, good. Yeah, Microsoft skills. Yeah, absolutely. Sounds good. All right, Zai. I appreciate that clarification. Thank you. Okay, after an interview offer not extended, are still eligible to apply that company in different department? If not, how long should we apply at the same company till you get a job there? But the thing is, as I just mentioned, the application resume process, that's a minimum standard. And it certainly is a low return on investment. So if we looked at all of the numbers of people who apply, let's say for the roles you're looking at, 500 people apply. So what are the odds you're getting that job? 1 out of 500, okay? 1 out of 500. Now your results might vary, but you need to track your numbers. If you're making applications and you're getting interviews, what's the conversion rate? 1 interview for 10 applications, one interview for 100, 1 for 150, right? What is your conversion number? So whether that's whether that's applications or networking or, serendipitous moments on a Friday during career happy hour, track the numbers. Know where your leads are coming from that are getting to interviews, and how did you get there? And how can you replicate that to get the same success? So my suspicion is if you went through an interview and made it to the finals, you should feel real good about that. Because here's the thing, they can only pick one, and it's 1 out of 500. So you are actually potentially 1 out of 2 at the finals. So you had a 50% shot. And unfortunately, you didn't get that. Maybe it was fortunate. Maybe it was a self-selecting situation where the leader is a micromanager. They did you a favor. So if you're a self-starter and can think for yourself, maybe they don't want somebody like that. So just don't think it's about you. Think it's more about them accepting somebody else. They accepted somebody else. That's fine. I was just lucky and glad and grateful that I met them and had a chance to interview. First thing. Second thing, anybody you met at that company, if it's one you want to maintain a relationship with, is I would follow up with them occasionally just to say, hey, thanks again for the interview opportunity. I'm looking to expand my connections in the company. Where do you think I should go next? Right? What part of the company should I talk to? What are you guys focused on now that you've selected the right candidate? Well, actually, I'm glad you called. I'm glad you called, Gary, because that person didn't work out. It ended up they had to go back to home to take care of an ailing grandparent, or they had a sick spouse that has cancer. They couldn't take the job. Okay. Now, because you kept in touch and that person was onboarded and maybe on the job for 45 days, and you called at that time, they might just accelerate your onboarding right then because they'd already gone through the hiring process with you. So keep in touch with that. If you want to, you feel like it's a team you could really see yourself working on, and these people appear to be top notch and accommodating and appreciative of all the time, energy, and effort you put into preparing for that interview. Yeah, I would make them a member of my network for sure. Okay. Vi, thank you for the question. Can we apply for jobs even on Friday or weekends? Sure. It's a 24/7 thing. Remember, you're applying for these jobs in a system. There's no person behind it. It's just data entry. So I mean, one of the things I would really look at, in fact, I will share with you in the chat. Let me grab this copy. You really appreciate this if you haven't looked at it. I will share with you in the chat. Oh, come on now. Do I have to paste that as plain text? There we go. Okay. In the chat, you will see a link. In the chat, you will see a link that will lead you to an article. In this article, they talk about conversion to interviews, okay, based on applications. Why do I bring this up? Well, they tell you which days of the week are most productive for making applications. They tell you when to apply. They tell you what % of the requirements you ought to meet in order to get an interview and what % match for the requirements you shouldn't apply for an interview, okay? So read that and let me know what you think. You don't have to do that right now. Of course, it's career happy hour. So if you want to grab a cocktail and read that, read that article, by all means, go ahead, okay? I'm not going to say don't apply, and I'm not going to tell you when to apply. I'm going to tell you that applying is a minimum standard. We shouldn't stop there if you're going to do a reactive strategy, okay? Now, if a hiring manager asks me to make an application, then I'm all in, right? That's my minimum standard. but I want to meet a hiring manager first. So that if we were to talk about critical success factors or KPIs, that's it. It's the number of hiring managers you meet every week. Now, it doesn't have to even be in your domain, but guess what? Hiring managers know and talk to other hiring managers. Okay, think about that from that perspective. Okay, there's no right or wrong here, folks. Next steps, adjustments, fine tuning. Okay. Let's see. Vi, great question. Does it look desperate or taking the initiative when applying on the weekends? I don't think it says anything, honestly. We're not in a relationship with a computer. Let's put it that way. We're not in a relationship with a computer. Okay. It's a data entry device. It's a database. We're doing data entry. Okay. That's it. Think of it just as admin. It's administrative stuff. Okay. Good. Let's see. Can I, thank you, Gary. Following, can I check with the same HR contact to a new position? Yeah, that's perfectly valid, right? If you ran through an interview loop, or maybe you got to the finals and they picked somebody else, that's fine. Thank the interview team and the HR contact. And then when you see a new posting, go back to them and say, hey, thanks again for this interview opportunity. I really want to work with this company and I saw this other position. Are you the recruiter for that, or should I contact somebody else? Oh, no, that's me. Or no, that's the other person and this is who you should contact. Great. Should I forward you my cover letter resume? I've already made the application, right? You've already made an application. Do you want my cover letter resume? I would absolutely do that. Great coaching. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. So I'll take the gratitude and the kudos. That's great. I appreciate it. But what I'd really like to see is people connecting in the chat, right? I would like to see you reach out to somebody else, have a conversation, and I want to see this be a community that builds momentum. Because truthfully, it would be great if I was the only one here and all you had, opportunities somewhere else. But then I would like you to come back. Why? Because it's an opportunity for you to pay it forward. If I came back and I had gotten a job and this group was helpful to you, certainly recommend it, but come back and be a resource. Pay it forward, recognizing that this process is not easy. Going through a transition, not easy. Reaching out to people you don't know, not easy. Okay. This is a time for you to do that. So if you want to come on live, by the way, I'm happy to do that. I will put a link in the chat. If you have any questions for me, I can answer them live right now. Just get into the chat or in the description of wherever you're joining from, and let's do this. I'm happy to bring you on. You can ask my question. We can have a more dynamic conversation, and maybe offer some. So here's the thing about that: is that if you have a question and you want to get an answer from me, guess what? Somebody else probably has that question. And by you having the courage to come on live, you'll not only get exposure, but you'll help somebody else overcome a roadblock, potentially. Okay? Otherwise, if you have questions, put those in the chat. Happy to answer. Okay? So that was something that happened to me. Helped the CFO get placed this week, so that felt good. Got a nice gift. Now we're supporting his onboarding that organization. So that was good fun. That was a lot of fun. What else happened this week? Oh, there was a presidential debate. I'm not going to go into politics, but I can assure you that that debate, wow, what can I say? Makes us happy to be Americans with freedom, but certainly not the message we want to send to the world. Anyhow, not going to talk politics here. So, but that, so I guess the thing that comes out of that is there are people that are afraid, are filled with uncertainty, are concerned about what's going on in the world, and they need some support from people like us. They need a helping hand. They might need you to cut their grass or take out their trash. I say it that way, but just think through who you can help this week or this month or even between now and the end of the year. Okay. Okay. Here's a question for Vi. Can we apply with a different resume for different positions in the same company, especially in OEMs and in technical brack? That's a good question. So if you use a different resume for different positions, a lot of the ATS systems will only use the last resume you entered. Okay, so you could go and apply for, let's say, 4 positions. Well, you apply for 1, you customize it. 2, you customize that one. 3, you customize that one. And 4. Guess which one they use? The 4th one for all of them, okay? So what they want to do is they want to have you and they want to have a resume. And so you as a record, right, in the ATS is one person. So what they're assuming is that you've updated your resume, and now that's the one you want to run with, okay? So what would I recommend? Yes, enter a resume there that's customized, maybe one that's more general, I'm not sure. And then don't stop there. See if you can find somebody inside the company, a recruiter, a hiring manager, a peer, anybody who will answer, and send them a copy of your cover letter resume. That way it's a hard copy and it's customized, okay? All the bullets under each job description have to be accomplishment statements, especially in the field where some bullet points are like release to technical documentation? Please suggest. Yes. Here's the thing. The accomplishments on your resume should be things that matter to you and are part of your brand and are relevant to the audience. So there's kind of three components to an accomplishment statement. You need to highlight the skill you want to use, because all of us have capabilities, and sometimes we put accomplishment statements that highlight things we're no longer interested in. Okay, don't let that be you. Think about the things in that story that you enjoyed, and make sure you showcase those strengths. Don't always try to go out by and meet somebody else's expectations, thinking that that's going to endear them to you. It may not. Again, this is about relationship and trust. People hire those they know, like, and trust. It's about relationship. It's about trust. What is the resume if it's a moving target? It lacks consistency. And if one company is seeing different resumes from you and different applications, or disconnected applications, then they're going to make a presumption that you don't know what you want and you're just applying to waste their time. Okay. So just be clear that the accomplishments that you use certainly should be bullets that add value to the conversation, both for you and for them, and can demonstrate some results. Okay. Teresa, good question. Cover letters, short and sweet or long and drawn out? Short and sweet. The idea of a cover letter is to introduce your expertise on the resume as relates to the requirements of the role. So if you were to send something like a resume to a company that only accepts the last one that you entered, if you've got 4 applications in with that company, the resume might be consistent to cover all 4, but you could have a different cover letter for each one. Okay, so they will keep the cover letter, I believe, specific to the requisition, not to you as a candidate. So what they do is they attach your resume to you as a candidate. Okay, short and sweet, to the point. How do you meet the requirements of the role? That's what you're looking for. Here's your requirement: 5 years experience. I've got 8 years experience. Bachelor's degree. I got a master's, right? Capability to run cross-cultural global programs in the category of $5 million. Great. Cross-quarter category, $50 million. Okay. So think about that from that perspective. Good. Let's see. So you shouldn't apply again until you hear a reject? No. You should apply to any role that you feel qualified for. You should not apply to roles just for the sake of applying to roles. Okay. So for example, I've got expertise in business development and sales. I was good at that. Okay. However, I have no interest in doing that kind of work. Not like I used to. Okay. Not that customer experience or sales operations isn't something that's interesting to me. A delivery of customer service. Okay. But I would not go out and apply for roles to which I'm not interested. What does that mean? Well, not in terms of me meeting requirements, but me being out of alignment with what I'm trying to accomplish. So what would be a role up my alley? So if I were to extrapolate my coaching business to a role, that would be things like talent management, experience management, anything related to leadership development, that sort of thing. Okay, so think about the roles that you're interested in and why you're interested in them. Not because you need a job, right? I think many of us here in the career happy hour need a job. That's elementary. What is it above that? What is it that's fulfilling for you and why? And be okay advocating for your own happiness. You have permission. So I don't look at the application process as strategic to my future. I look at the application process as a necessary evil that's a tactical administrative process. Okay, it's a necessary evil. So should you not apply? No, you should apply. Should you invest 100% of your daily waking cycles making applications? And the answer to that question is fairly obvious, and it's no. I would allocate a certain amount of time based on the success of that method for me. So if I looked at all the applications I made and all the interviews I got, I would come up with a number. Maybe that's, let's say, 1 out of 50. Okay, 1 out of 50. What percent of my time should I now dedicate to that process? 2%, because that's the success rate that I'm getting from that method. Okay. Now, if I'm not doing any networking, then I have no numbers to go on. I'm going to assume it's 0, but that's not fair, right? What's fair is how many people did I reach out to? Okay. Maybe I reach out to 2 people and I don't get a conversation and nothing happens. And I think that method is false, right? It's not a large enough sample size. Okay. So for those of us here, the key KPI, the key performance indicator to search is how many hiring managers you meet every day, every week, every month. So if you wanted a plan, that would be it. How many hiring managers can you talk to today? Okay. So that's what I would suggest. Let's see. Yes, I agree, Craig. Absolutely. If you can identify a hiring manager, send your cover letter resume direct to the hiring manager. They're listed on LinkedIn. Whether there's an open position or not, the cold outreach might not be the first approach. Maybe you send a letter of introduction or a connection request. You might have a little more etiquette and manners involved in that, and send a letter of introduction and then follow that up with a cover letter resume. Absolutely. In that case, one cannot clear the ATS system. I'm not sure what that means, Mina, but the ATS is a system, and it's governed by systems, policy, procedure. There's certain algorithms there, right? There's things that may or may not allow you to apply for other roles. Companies might force that, where there's a quiet period where, hey, you know what? There's a quiet time or a buffer when you can apply again and interview with that company. I'm not privy to that information, but this is why networking is so valuable, is that you can get inside a company, don't need a resume. You can have a conversation with a person, don't have to make an application. You can find out where the opportunities are in advance of them being posting, and you can establish your value to that hiring team so that when that process is initiated, you're already funneled into it. Okay. Already funneled in. Good. Let's see. You're welcome, Teresa. Appreciate you. I hear that you need 99% match via ATS to be considered. No, it's exactly the opposite. In fact, Mina, it's interesting. I just put that article in the chat. I'll put it back in here again in case you missed it. Let me see if it's in there. Oh, no, that's the studio restream. It's in the chat. It talks about the percent match. Okay. I got to do that as plain text. But look at that article. I think you all who are talking about applications and resumes and that sort of thing, if you're not getting any good feedback, or you're not hearing anything, or you're making all these applications and you're not getting a response, that's why. Is because what do hiring teams, and even the ATS is structured this way, what is an ATS or the hiring team going to think about you if you meet 100% of the requirements? 100% across the board, you meet all of our requirements. Think about it from the hiring manager, the hiring team perspective. What are they thinking about you? Okay. What are they thinking about you? Give me some ideas. Yeah, give me some ideas in the chat if you would. What do they think about you if you're one of those people that meets 100% of the requirements? And I've seen this consistently from everybody I talk to. Oh, well, I would think they're overqualified. Or, oh, I would think they're maybe stuffing the resume with the job description or keywords. They're puffing up their expertise, right? They're too good to be true. They're expensive, right? There's all these things that we're activating through that process. So if you meet 100% of the requirements, what I'm suggesting is you're overshooting a target. You need to be shooting higher, okay? You need to be shooting higher for something above that level, okay? Good deal. Okay. If I'm not getting good feedback on positions that I qualify for, would it be okay to apply for roles that I'm overqualified for? Yes, absolutely. So I would look at IO, I would look at somewhere between 40 and 60% as a minimum standard. Why? Because what do most leaders want to do? And we probably got a handful of folks here that have been leaders before. They want to have the capacity to develop people, okay? They want to be able to develop people. If they look down at your requirements and they look at the role and they're like, wow, this person could develop me. That might be their philosophy. They want somebody to replace them. That's a different story altogether. But generally speaking, as a leader, I want to have the capability or I want to see room for growth. I don't want to hire you in at the top end of the pay range. I mean, there's lots of reasons why that company and that leader may not hire you because of that. Okay. So that's a good position, so if you're not getting responses or feedback on the ones you qualify for, it's either the method you're using or the roles you're applying for. So you can rectify both by applying for positions that are above your qualifications, 40 to 60% match is a minimum. And you can also initiate some networking. Everybody here is capable of reaching out to someone else in the chat and having a conversation. Io could talk to Mina. You could talk to Teresa. You could talk to Vi. You could talk to Craig. Everybody here, I think they're here because it's a community. Reach out to people in the community. Have those conversations. It's open, fair game, okay? I don't think people are here just to consume. I think they're here because of the interactions we can create, the conversations we can have, the relationships we can build, okay? Yes, that you've manipulated the resume. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So look at that article, Mina. I think it's a good one, right? Yes. Too good to be true. Absolutely. That you've manipulated the resume. They won't get to know you and meet you. Yeah, that's right. That's one of the downsides of it, because if they don't think you're real, then they're going to look you over. Okay. It's a fake resume. Absolutely. Okay. 50% or more apply. There are need to haves and nice to haves in the JD. Yeah, absolutely. It's a laundry list. It's a wish list. And most of the hiring managers I've talked to, rarely, if ever, do they hire somebody meets all their requirements across the board, unless they're lucky and get a unicorn, and that's exactly what they were looking for. But often that isn't what they were looking for. Okay. Good. Yeah. I would go for things that are above your capabilities. Absolutely. Because you want to show opportunity for growth. You want to show opportunity for the growth. Should we dumb down our title? No, I wouldn't do that. You might call it right sizing your resume, right? If you want to step backwards, that's fine, but it's going to be sniffed out when they look at your LinkedIn profile. So if you're dumbing down your title in your resume to meet the expectations of a hiring team, you're out of I call it integrity, but what I mean is consistency. You're not being consistent. Okay. Good. JobScan says 80% match needed. Is it just enough for 40 to 60%? Here's what JobScan can't tell you. Nobody can tell you this. They can't tell you how each and every company has implemented, uses, and has optimized their applicant tracking system. They don't have that data. So what they're going on is hyperbole and generality. And it's unfortunate that JobScan would say that. Why? Because they're going based on general algorithms and how these systems work generally. But that doesn't mean that the company has implemented best practice, has taken the company advice from the ATS folks, the service provider, to implement those practices. They haven't established protocols there for people to interact with candidates like you. And that's a human-based fallacy, failing of that system, right? So it's not that JobScan is a bad service. I think JobScan is doing you a disservice by saying that you need their service to be successful. You don't. They know that they're leveraging that market statistic to get you to pay for the service. So just recognize what they get out of making you believe that that's true. 40%, look at the research I sent you. That company made applications on behalf of real candidates, and they tracked the day they applied and the day they got an interview notice, okay? And they broke it down by gender. They found that ladies, you should feel good about this, were getting interviews at a 40% match. 40% was same as 90. 40% was same as 90% match. Why? Because companies have to have a diverse slate of candidates for every role. It's part of equal employment opportunity. Call it what you will, but most ladies, and this is where you're different than men, is that most ladies will not apply for jobs until they know they can do it well. And so they're not applying for any job that's maybe below 80, 85%. Okay. So the reason why are they getting interviews at 40? Because they need a diverse slate of candidates, and none of the ladies are applying. So I give you permission. Apply for roles where you're only 50% qualified. And guess what? You'll be shocked when you get an interview. No, actually now you won't be shocked when you get an interview, because I just gave you the good news. Okay. Okay. If HR message is saying the reason's not hired because of interviewer had doubts, here's the thing. Unless you're getting direct feedback from a hiring team that's the case, a lot of times the HR messages or the information you get back after an interview is automated. These are boilerplate responses, and that they're sometimes user initiated. So don't think that because you have an HR message that it's true. What they're saying is they accepted somebody else. They did not reject you. And if you need help with interviews, that is a service I provide. Just help a CFO last week get onboarded to a company, and we're going to facilitate his 90-day onboarding strategy. So yes, I have experience helping people interview for jobs. When's your next job? Interview, and I'm happy to help. There is a service I provide. You can go to my website to check it out. Okay, good. Yes. Hey guys, I'm open for tech support and cybersecurity roles. Great. Excellent. Maybe there's people here that you can talk to that hire for, or know people who have those skills. So the opportunity here isn't that you're looking for roles, is you're looking for people to meet. Okay. Look for people to meet that have an interest in cybersecurity or technology, or maybe you're looking at, how do you prevent people's identities from being stolen during the holidays? Isn't that a cybersecurity issue? Anybody in retail would want to know about that. Okay. So think about the problem you solve in the marketplace and leverage that. Let's see. So if you go up in a job, your skill should match 40 to 60% of the requirements. No, what I'm suggesting is the job description that's posted online is not a barometer of what that company or that team needs. That's something you have to verify at the interview. What it means is you should not be reluctant to apply for roles where you meet 40 to 60% of the requirements. Okay. Don't not apply because you don't think you're qualified. Let the hiring team decide that after the interview. Okay. After we apply online, should we reach out to the hiring manager or HR? If you're engaged in a reactive strategy, yes. Okay. And if there's no other way to get there, I would not make that a standard of practice. That's not a best known method. Best known method is networking first. Okay. Application resume second, interview third. Okay. So that means you're already talking to hiring managers. You're already talking to peers. You're already talking to people in the operation where you'd be working. It's a place you want to work. Okay. And not just because you want work, but there's got to be something more. Okay. There's got to be something more. So best known method is not application resume, follow up with a hiring manager contact. That's a reactive strategy, and it's not a best known method. Okay. But if you're going to do the application resume and it's the only way and have heard about that company or that role, then yes, I would advocate don't just do the application. You got to do more. Okay. And don't stop there. Talk to anybody and everybody at the company, and whether you get that job or not, don't stop just because that job's been filled. Okay. Good. HR message is saying, okay, interviewer had doubt. Oh, we already talked about that, didn't we? Did you put that in there twice? It must have been in there twice. Sorry about that. Good. It is so true. Yeah, I meant hiring manager told the interviewers had doubts. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, is that these companies bring people in, they bring in a slate of candidates, and what percent of the time do you think they've already got a preferred candidate? What percent of the time do you think they have a preferred candidate already identified? My guess is somewhere north of 80% of the time. They already know who they're going to hire before the interviews start, okay? But they'll never tell you that. They still have to interview somebody, and it doesn't feel good. And you know when it happens, they're just not engaged in the interview process. So you have to be really prepared to engage people when they don't want to be engaged, okay? Because the only thing that can overcome the preferred candidate is somebody who knocks it out of the park at the interview, okay? So what does that mean? So that means that they're only going to give you a boilerplate textbook response when you ask for feedback on the resume application interview process, okay? You didn't get moved forward in the process. That's your feedback. You don't need any more feedback. There's something there they didn't like or some component of that you didn't perform well on. That's all. And it may be that you were the compliance candidate. They just went with somebody else. Remember, this is less about you and more about them accepting somebody else, okay? Because there can only be one person selected out of hundreds. So I would feel good just getting an interview, okay? Feel good that you got the interview. Be grateful for it. Use that as a launch pad to execute some networking follow-up. Stay in touch with those people. Schedule an offline conversation about leadership principles or whatever at Amazon or some topic. Not about your need for employment. Come up with some topic to talk about outside of your need for employment, okay? Because that's tactical. It's not strategic. What is the problem you solve in the marketplace? Or not how many times do I have to beat this home? Okay. What problem do you solve in the marketplace? Okay. That's what we're talking about here. All right. We've been going a little over an hour. If you have other questions, I'm happy to answer, but typically we go about an hour. And if you want to, please share this out with people. I think there's a lot here that can be gained and people around the internet should know about it. So if you're on Facebook, hit the share button. If you're on Periscope, hit the share button. If you're on LinkedIn, hit the share button and share this out with your networks, please. If there's a nugget here that you got value from, say what that nugget is. Hey, he had some great insights on networking or what to do in the fourth quarter or whatever, okay? Good. Vi's got another question here. Any tips on networking with hiring managers? Yes. Talk about them, their career path, and a topic of interest. Whatever your topic of interest is that you would have in common with that person. Maybe it's, I haven't looked at your profile, but maybe it's software development in the era of COVID. Maybe it's engaging remote work teams during a pandemic where everybody's worked from home. Maybe it's onshoring, because right now the trend has been offshoring. Well, maybe you want to bring all those people back onshore because some of those countries are now hotbeds for something your company doesn't want to be involved in. Maybe you've got skill in that. Whatever that topic is, and it has to be heart-centered, something you're interested in, something you're passionate about, and something you think that hiring manager would need. And you would ask them questions. So just so you know, there's a couple resources I would advocate. The first is, I'm not sure, is this in the, let's see if it's in the chat. Yeah, in the chat. Not in the chat, in the description. If you're on LinkedIn, it looks like you are, Vi. If you're on LinkedIn, click on the description at the top and you'll see several resources there. There's my podcast that I do with Scott Picard Jones. There's my blog, and then there's a networking and interview checklist. So you can go to that site on my website under resources. For some reason, it changes it to a LinkedIn link. I'm not sure if I can actually access those to get analytics. Anyway, if you know anything about LinkedIn analytics, I'd be interested to hear from you. But I'm not a big analytics person, but I'd certainly like to know why LinkedIn changes those links to a truncated one and how many people actually click on it. I just would be interested to know that. Good. Most of them won't respond and most don't mention their job descriptions to pick on some product or skill. I get it. So then you talk about asking questions. Ask questions. Ask questions. What was their career path? How did they get started? How did they onboard in the company? Okay. Now, I'm not going to suspect that if I reach out to 2 hiring managers that they're both going to say yes to a conversation. I might have to reach out to 15 or 20 today to get a couple of conversations this week. Okay. The hurdle to get over is 3 hiring managers a week. 3 hiring managers a week. If you could talk to 3 hiring managers each week about them, their company, their career path, how they're handling the pandemic, etc. Even better if you get introduced by somebody. So I would look for people I know first and then go to people you don't yet know second. See if they can make an introduction to that level of the company and not to the person, because that's stalking, right? So if I go to a common connection and I say, hey, can you introduce me to Vi? That's a little weird. How did you know I was connected to Vi? I may not even know Vi very well. So there you go. Anyway. All right, folks, I do appreciate you joining me today for Career Happy Hour. We'll see you every Friday, 3 p.m. Pacific time. That's my commitment to you. And just let me know in the chat something you learned today that you're going to implement in the next week. What is one thing you learned today that you're going to implement this week and see if it works for you? Let me know in the chat what that's going to be. And we'll see you next Friday. Have a great weekend, guys.